Waffles page. My waffles are cold. Man's Guide to Abusive Women. Also the author of the book of the same name, available on Amazon. And in this video, we're going to talk about what is narcissism. Many people that are on my Facebook page, and the main subject in the book on abusive women has to do with narcissism. Before we begin, we need to understand what narcissism is that we're talking about versus what we're not talking about. In today's age, we have so many misnomers about narcissism. First, let me say that most of us are narcissists or narcissistic to some degree. And the reason I say that is, if you just think about all the cell phones and how many selfies there are out there, everybody has some type of narcissism, and that type is generally called healthy narcissism. In other words, we look out for number one, sometimes above other people, and we care for ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with this type of narcissism. The difference between this kind of narcissism and the kind that we find in abusive relationships is that it's the narcissist above all other people, and it's a matter of motive and what the narcissist is after. In a regular relationship, they may both have some narcissistic tendencies, looking out for number one, taking care of themselves, having their time in the relationship and that sort of thing. But in a narcissistic abusive relationship where the person is only looking out for their welfare, and indeed the only reason they're in the relationship is to get what they want at the cost of the feelings of the other person, that's when it becomes abuse. Narcissistic personality disorder is a actual disorder which is contained in the DSM-5. Now, what that is just a fancy moniker for a diagnostic manual that psychiatrists use to diagnose narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. There's several types of this kind of narcissism that basically just farm down to the most prevalent one. One is a malignant sort of narcissism, and the others have to do with lesser forms that are co-combined with other cluster B disorders. And the more those enter into a narcissistic personality, then they get a different name for it. For instance, narcissistic personality combined with, say, histrionic personality, which is histrionic personality disorder is basically, if you think about the drama queen, always chaos, always, just can't stand the peace, and it blows up and stuff everywhere, and it's not the same as necessarily a borderline personality disorder. It's like a personality disorder, borderline personality disorder on steroids. But narcissistic personality all by itself, the most harmful one and the most pure one is called malignant narcissistic personality disorder. Now, that one is all by itself just a disorder that's doesn't really have characteristics anywhere else. These are and the word malignant gives you pretty much an understanding to what it is, just like a malignant cancer. All narcissistic people with narcissistic personality disorder do not respond well to any type of treatment. There is treatment for it, but they don't go to. You can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You can take a person with narcissistic personality disorder to go to couples counseling, but it's basically a waste of time. They're just going to blame everything on you anyway, which they do in the relationship anyway. They're not at fault for anything. One of the earliest things I noticed in my relationship with a narcissist was they're at fault for nothing. In fact, that's what caused me to discover that she had narcissistic personality disorder but during I had collapsed to the point of having a 72-hour stay in basically what was a mental health hospital, and I was assigned a counselor, and she saw what a mess I was, and we were talking about the relationship, and she asked me only one question, because she saw it right away. She asked me, is she ever wrong? And I'll tell you, I didn't even have to hesitate because I didn't have to think about an example. She was never wrong. And she said, well, without seeing her, I really can't diagnose, but I can tell you you're likely with a narcissistic individual, likely a malignant narcissistic individual. And that's when I began to discover, by learning and researching, what I was dealing with, and the more I learned, the more I knew I had to get out. And I did exit that relationship soon after on my own. Now, in an abusive relationship, especially a narcissistic relationship, there are three main stages. There's a honeymoon stage, followed sometimes immediately, sometimes a little later, by what's called a value stage. And soon after that, there's a discard stage where they just disappear or leave you, whatever. It's over. In the honeymoon stage, this is where the narcissist size you up. The narcissist will size you up to see what they can get out of you. They basically called a flyover. In my particular situation, it was soon after the death of my wife. I was vulnerable. That was one thing that they saw. I had a good size of money, insurance policies and things, excellent job, and possessions, a house, 3 cars, all of that. All which the narcissist saw as a way of obtaining or using for what they call supply. And the narcissist is all about getting their supply. It's not about getting their own stuff. Even if they have their own stuff, it's about getting your stuff. And sure enough, within the 2-year period, by the time I left that relationship, my house was in foreclosure, the cars were gone, the money was gone, everything was gone. And some people will listen to that and think, well, you let that happen. It's not that I let it happen. It's just that the narcissist knows how to put you into a perfect spell where they either can take it themselves or get you to give it away. All in the hopes that you're trying to rekindle the relationship. Because what happens is, ultimately, that you begin to discard, and the honeymoon stage is so intense. Because after they do their interview and they pick you, they will turn on the charm, they will turn on the sex, they will turn on everything and try to be everything you ever dreamed of. And once that ends and they go into the discard stage, you're left wondering, what did I do? And you're trying to double up and get back into that honeymoon stage, and you'll do anything to get back in that honeymoon stage. After the discard starts coming, or the value stage comes, and it's pretty intense, it's pretty brutal. Suddenly I went from being a nice guy, who incidentally, I knew this person for about 7 years prior to this relationship. I hadn't seen her in 5 years since I worked with her, and I hadn't seen her 5 years since I left that job. And we got along pretty fine. We worked in the office. I would have never thought she was a narcissist, but at the time she was married. She had since been divorced, and I just never saw it. She had some quirks, but I never saw the stuff I'd seen from her once we got a relationship. And I was constantly trying to redouble my efforts, and with the help of their psychological games, she made me feel I was at fault, that maybe it was stuff I was doing or whatever. One of the things I got into while in this relationship, because she was into this as well, was drinking. We partied hardy. I didn't do this with my wife, and my previous wife, because she didn't tolerate it. So effectually I just quit drinking for nearly 20 years, and never had a problem with alcoholism or anything, but we drank pretty heavily. And then about 3 months in a relationship, I guess I was drinking so much that it was affecting my work, and I was let go from my job. And then I had more time to drink, and by this time she had something to use against me, and calling me a loser, calling me this, calling me that, calling me whatever. It wasn't until well after I got out of a relationship that I would sit back and think fairly about it and say, you know what, I don't understand any woman that would put up with that anyway. But the issue is, I was thinking back to my previous wife, and I'm now married again, by the way, to a wonderful girl who loves me, real love, and would have understood what was going on, that I was reacting to a bad situation in life. and had tried to support me and did like my other wife did, and just kind of put her foot down and say, we're going to stop this, let's get your act together, let's go back to work. But the narcissist didn't do that. The narcissist, all she saw was an opportunity to really grind me into the ground. Now, if this all sounds familiar, that's what you're likely with. You're likely with a malignant narcissist. Now, all of the cluster Bs, and they are narcissism, borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. And the two main things that I have on my page, and most of the experience I've seen from men, is either with narcissism or borderline personality disorder, and we'll handle those in separate videos individually. But you know, narcissists can have, like I said, they can have borderline tendencies, antisocial personalities, histrionic personalities, and you know, these terms, don't get all tripped up on the terms and exact, you know, definitions of things. The thing about an abusive relationship is it shouldn't hurt. The thing about an abusive relationship is, you know, not that you don't have arguments, it's that you have them all the time. You know, when you become afraid of the person, you know, you don't want to talk because you know you're going to get judged. Everything you do is surrounded about how this person feels. And they surround your entire thinking. I mean, when I think back to my job, I only had 4 jobs for 4 years. It's not like I hopped from job to job. I was an information technology specialist, and I was very good at it. But nobody's going to hang on to you when your thoughts are continually on this one person, to the point where you find yourself seeking anybody that will listen, because you don't understand what's going on. And if that's going to be happening to you, your life's going to be disrupted to the point that you can't function anymore. There's nothing you can do. And the only option you have is to realize this and get out. See, the purpose of these videos, what I found was, once I found out I was likely dealing with a malignant narcissist, was to find out more and, you know, do some introspection. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why am I putting, what am I afraid of? What am I going to lose by dumping her and walking away? And all the answers came back to the positive. I'll lose nothing. You know, I'll go to having no relationship. But you know what? Having no relationship is better than being in an abusive relationship. Having no relationship is better than wake up every morning feeling like crap and going to bed feeling like crap, or drinking yourself into oblivion because you can't stand to be around this person anymore. And you know, it's not love. I was fortunate because I had a comparison. I had a wife of 30 years in a loving relationship, and I knew what that was about. It was successful. You know, she passed away from cancer, and you can't help that kind of stuff. But you know, I saw what a real relationship is, and I know it's possible. And why was I in this relationship, in this crazy making relationship, when I had been in a good relationship before, and I could do the comparison? You know, it wasn't apples or oranges. It was good, really bad. And one day I got up and I knew enough about it to know the discard was on its way, and I just beat her to the punch. And it wasn't because I just wanted to beat her to the punch. I wanted to get out of there. And I did. And later, I'm going to talk to you in other videos about how you should do that, because there's other parts to that, which are really the difficult parts. The difficult parts are actually if you do the discard and try to stay away, because there's all kinds of, in any relationship, there's emotional bonding, and in any relationship, there's psychological bonding to a person, and breaking that psychological bond. Breaking, you know, almost that addiction to the person. It's like giving up cigarettes. Something I'm working on that I picked up I didn't do before either, and I'm still working on getting rid of my addiction to that, and it's just not easy. It's just not easy. It's a little easier for that because, you know, cigarette you can pick up in any market anywhere. You know, with this relationship, just to give you a brief example of what you do, you go no contact. You know, you absolutely cut contact. You cut every contact you have to this person, and you block every access they have to you, even if it takes restraining orders to get away from them. And of course, it's complicated if you had children, if you ended up getting married. We were engaged to be married, thank God we didn't. And you have property divisions and all that stuff. But if you're in a regular, just non-binding relationship, it's a lot easier. But it's still rough to break that psychological addiction. I see this on my Facebook page all the time. And people, I don't know what I'm going to do without this person. And they're asking questions of, what do I do if this person contacts you? And I'm like, well, it's obvious what you do. You don't answer the phone. Do you want to, if you're out of jail, do you want to return to prison? I've never seen a prisoner that wants to return to prison and get back under their oppressor. That's why people leave oppression, so they don't go back to it. So we're going to talk about this. I know we started off with narcissism, but this is kind of a review of where we're going. The main focus of this video is just to get you to start thinking about something. If you're watching this video, you're trying to find out something. If you've been to any kind of narcissism page, you're wondering what's happening. You're reaching out. You're trying to get some understanding. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people out there that have been through abusive relationships. So you're not alone. That's the number one thing. You're not alone. And if you reach out, get your information, you're going to begin to see like this curtain start to part. And you're going to see this light coming in, because one of the things that happens, your world goes dark. You start letting a little light in, and you start seeing that whoever you're looking at, the narcissist you're looking at, begins to turn into this hideous creature, and you want to get away. The nightmare has to end. And the way it ends is you just walk away. As hard as it has to be, you walk away and you never return. As I said, I got remarried. It's been 2 years since I saw that narcissist. I have no contact, none. And you get to the point where you don't care about them anymore. I don't care if they fall off the edge of the cliff. I don't care if they become successful. I don't care what they do. They're not in my mind anymore. Right now, my mind's surrounded about pleasing my wife, because I also learned that as a husband before. It's nice to keep your wife happy and pleased, but in a good way. And she just does as much for me as I do for her, if not more. And that's a loving, caring relationship. And it's a good thing. A good thing. And I've worked through the garbage, I worked through the baggage, I worked through everything. I did a lot of hard work. It was one of the first things I did. And I say this over and over again: get help. Get information, get help. See a therapist. Have somebody who knows about victims of narcissistic personality disorder, and work with them. Get books, read it, do the worksheets. Get Why Waffles Are Cold, A Man's Guide to Abusive Women, and read it. In that book, I detail my experience. I lay it all out, good, bad, and otherwise. Like I said, I'm very good with, and I believe this, I clean up my side of the street. I blame the narcissist for what she did to me, but I clean up my own side of the street. I've gotten to the point of healing when I can say, I got into this relationship, no matter what the reasons were. I stayed in relationships, no matter what the reasons were. I'm an adult. I'm 60 years old, and I know I can take responsibility for my actions. I don't take responsibility for what she did to me. But I'm very proud of the fact that after I got my information, I left. And I worked hard, and I got my healing. I can tell you it does work. And today I don't think about her. A thought may cross my mind, but only when I'm writing about, narcissism. I have a new book coming out after this. It's going to be on borderline personality disorder. Basically a survival guide to that. That one is particularly important because borderline personality disorder has, it's a wider avenue to that type of thing, and how to look for the signs and whatnot and get out of that relationship at all, and many others. Got a whole page full. I'm a former writer during the 90s. I was a 911 dispatcher. This started me on a journey of, I guess you say, mental health. And after that, I wrote a book about 911 dispatcher stress, and I spent the 2000s traveling the country talking about it. So while I'm not a psychiatrist, I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to these things peer level wise, and I'm going to pass on what I know. So there'll be some videos on stress, how to, get your life better than what it's, been, especially while you were being abused. And here's the one thing. It's one thing to get away from narcissism, it's another thing to inoculate yourself against ever being in an abusive relationship again. You're going to learn how to have the feelers out, so to speak, in order, if you do choose to get in another relationship. And it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you don't want to get in another relationship. But if you do, if you follow life the way life goes, you may do that. You're going to know what you're getting into. You're going to know what to ask. You're going to get into it for the right reasons. Your experience of being a victim is going to help you and not hamper you. And I don't like the word victim. After you lead a relationship, you won't be a victim as much as you'll become a survivor. And then you can pass your information to other guys or women who have been through the same thing and help them along. I have a saying on the Facebook page, Together We Heal. It's not about one person having all the answers. It's about the many who have little pieces, each have their own answers to the situation to give you the information to form your own path of freedom. And that's important. It's like I used to teach in stress management. I didn't teach people how to get rid of stress my way. I gave them the information about what it was, how it affects your body, how it affects your mind, to give them the information where they could develop, and so that if it applies to them, they can form their own stress management program. So again, I'm TP McAtamney. My book, My Waffles Are Cold, A Man's Guide to Abusive Women, is available on Amazon. It's in Kindle form. We have a hard copy in the works. And like I said, you get that on Amazon Kindle. My Waffles Are Cold, A Man's Guide to Abusive Women, is a Facebook page. You can go there as well. Lots of information. It's an open forum. If you're not a fan of open forums, I made it that way because I want more people to get access to it. There are closed forums on the internet as well. You don't have to go in there and share anything or anything that's going on in a relationship, but you'll see that there's articles, links to articles. I put little memes up there, just all kinds of stuff. And there's tens of thousands of people that this page reaches every day, and I'm very happy about that. So, the word's getting out to people, and generally from a man's perspective, but it's not exclusive to men. I realize women have the same, in abusive relationships just like men. The only difference is men react to this type of thing differently. Domestic abuse of men is still a subject that's under the microscope, so to speak. I shouldn't say under the microscope, under the table, because you don't hear a lot about it, but over 800,000 men in this country alone per year suffer domestic violence. And it's a big deal now. And it's getting better, it's getting more recognition. But guys don't generally, the way they respond to it, they generally don't call the cops and say, my wife is abusing me, because of false machoism and the way that our society is designed today. But there is help for you. You have a right. You're a male and you're being abused. It doesn't matter by who. You have a right to speak out, and you have a right to get help for it. So again, visit that Waffles page. I love Waffles page. And by the way, if you're wondering what the Waffles is, it was during the relationship with a narcissist where I made her waffles in bed, and she told me they were too cold. Kind of simple, right? But that was just indicative of the entire relationship. Making, my girl waffles in, bed with all the fixings and stuff, and to be told I didn't cook the waffles right. Just threw that in because some people ask what the waffle thing is. But again, thanks for watching this video. Visit the Waffles page. Do download a copy of that book, and you'll be glad you did. And I'm TP McAtamney, and I'll see you in another video real soon. Bye-bye.